a lot of white people in America who have lost everything. They've lost their jobs, they've lost their homes and their families, and that's one of the reasons they want to hold on to their guns, because that's the only power and control they feel they have left. Take away their gun and they lose more than everything. So this gunman who killed these children, why did he do that? Very good question. The vast majority of these gunmen in America are white, male, young. They have almost no friends. They don't have a girlfriend, and they have a anger toward women in general. So instead of talking about their feelings to a therapist, perhaps, or talking to somebody, not all men in this demographic, but a lot of them, they choose to get a gun and instead of dealing with their problems, taking out their frustrations on all of these innocent victims. Well, that's another thing. Some of them also have financial hardships. In this case, in Uvalde, he was not white. He was Latino, like myself. For Uvalde, I have not seen, but sometimes it is racial. In Buffalo, there was a white man who called himself a white supremacist, and he went into a black neighborhood and he shot and killed, he went in there with the intention to shoot and kill black people. There's a mass shooting in the United States every day, which is defined as a shooting where 4 or more people are shot. And so there are so many examples, sadly, to choose from. But Dylan Ruth, a few years ago, was a young white male who called himself a racist, and he went into a black church on a Sunday in the middle of service and started shooting. And he said, he left a note, he survived, but he said he wanted to start a racial war. So in some of these cases, it is racially motivated. I would not say the motivation is more racial than anything else. I would not say that. I would say the basic motivation is that this is oversimplifying. These young men are unhappy, and I know that sounds oversimplistic, and it is, but some of these young men, not all unhappy young men are going to go out and kill people, but when you have all these unhappy young men and it's easy to buy a gun in America, which it is, it's easier to buy a gun than a car. In America, you have to take a driver's test, get a driver's license, then you go buy a car. You can, as long as you're 18 in some states, I shouldn't laugh, but if you're 18 in some states, you can just buy a gun. So the majority of them are men, and the motivation is that they're just unhappy, and instead of getting therapy or instead of getting help, they take out their frustrations on these innocent victims. We talked, it was mentioned a little bit in the video that when you talk about guns in America, you're talking about the entire political system. Now, that observation is exactly on point. We're the richest country in the world. Why do we have all of these young men who are unhappy? Well, there's a lot to go in there. And yes, we're the richest country in the world, but that only means that the GDP and the stock market is high. The truth is, before COVID, homelessness was increasing. Europe, Canada, Japan, they all have a similar program where everyone's health care is either completely paid for by the government or partially, or there's some kind of system where not all systems are the same. The British system is not the same as the French system, for example, but they all result in everyone being able to go to the hospital. Nobody in these countries says, I can't go to hospital, I don't have money. America's the richest country in the world. We don't have anything like that because the privately owned hospitals and the private prescription drug companies want to make more money, and they will in America, by saying healthcare is a product I can sell, as opposed to Canada, Europe, and Japan, who say, no, 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 healthcare is a basic human right. We have to provide this to people, like we provide law enforcement, fire departments, military. You don't pay for the fire department to help you. You don't pay for public school teachers to teach you. You could argue, well, I do pay for that in my taxes. Okay, but Canada, Europe, and Japan have found ways to make education, law enforcement protection, fire department protection, and education and healthcare rights. And so the simple answer to your question is, it's not a right in America. The number one reason Americans go bankrupt is because they cannot afford their medical bills. If you can believe that. The NRA is very powerful. These private hospitals, these private companies that own these private hospitals and own the pharmaceuticals, they're very powerful, meaning they will donate to the campaigns of these politicians, so that even when the politicians say, elect me, I'll give you health care, it won't happen. It's corruption. It's corruption. Trump said, I'm going to give everybody health care. He didn't. Now, he was only president for one term, so maybe you could argue, oh, he didn't have time. These people who you're talking about, I mentioned them earlier, Americans who are clinging to their guns now more than ever because of economic hardship. Chris Hedges, who I mentioned earlier, has been saying this for over 10 years. If we reintegrate these people into the economy, they will be a little less angry. A lot of these gun owners, like who you were talking about, would they feel the need for that gun so much if they had a high-paying job? Would they feel the need to have a gun so much if not only did they have a high-paying job, but their spouse didn't need a job, and they could afford to send their kids to college without taking loans, if their kids wanted to go to college, and if they could afford all of their medical bills, a previous topic we touched on. If all of those things were happening with these gun owners, would they really feel the need to have that gun? Would they be so angry? I mentioned earlier the majority of these shooters are young, white, male, no friends, almost no friends, no girlfriend, and a general anger toward women. Would they be a little less angry if they had more money?